Now we start this hour with Venezuela, when Maduro's lawmaker son has addressed the Venezuelan Legislature Assembly, stating that if they normalize the kidnapping of a head of state, no country is safe in the world. Maduro's son has also offered his support for the acting President Delcy Rodriguez, who has been ordered by the Supreme Court to assume the presidency in an acting capacity. Meanwhile, Jorge Rodriguez has been appointed as the president of Venezuela's National Assembly, who has promised to explore all possible ways to bring back Nicolas Maduro to Venezuela. New members of Venezuela's single-chamber parliament were chosen last May in elections boycotted by much of the opposition, leaving 256 of the 286 seats in the hands of the ruling United Socialist Party of Venezuela and its allies. Let's listen into what the lawmaker son of Maduro has shared.
Del país, ellos volverán. Nuestros ojos lo verán. Seremos testigos de ese momento histórico. No tengan dudas que eso va a pasar. En el nombre de Dios Todopoderoso, se lo pedimos y lo va a cumplir. Amén. A ti, Delcy, Eloína, mi apoyo incondicional a la tarea tan dura que te toca. Cuenta conmigo, cuenta con mi familia, cuenta con nuestra firmeza para tomar los pasos correctos al frente de esta responsabilidad que hoy te toca, y estamos firmes en unidad absoluta para lograr los objetivos de la paz en Venezuela, de sacar al país adelante y que regresen Nicolás y Cilia. Y a ti, papá, te digo, hiciste de todos nosotros en la familia gente fuerte. Aquí estamos, cumpliendo hasta que regrese. La patria está en buenas manos, papá. Y pronto nos vamos a abrazar aquí en Venezuela. Y vas a ver a los muchachos, Cilia. Los vas a ver, Cilia. Nos vamos a ver. Que viva Venezuela, que viva la patria. Y aquí estamos firmes para lo que tengamos que hacer por nuestra patria. Los amamos mucho. Muchas gracias.
Now for this discussion, we welcome Dr. Asta Chadha. She's an associate professor of international relations, joins us live of Ritsumeikan University, joins us live from Kyoto. Thank you very much, Dr. Chadha, for joining us once again. I hope you're staying safe out there because of the earthquake. Now, looking at our discussion once again, you know, now that we've seen Nicolas, Venezuelan people, or the Venezuelan Maduro's son address Venezuelan people, and him claiming that, you know, they'll do anything to bring back Nicolas Maduro, do they realistically have any chances? Or when they say bring back Maduro, what channels do they have?
Thank you, Asuma, for for welcoming me. And yes, I'm safe. We're all safe here in Kyoto. Well, I mean, you know, the stakes are very high for Venezuelan politicians, for people who were in support of Maduro. And I mean, if you look at the people in charge right now in Venezuela, they're all the same people who were from the inner circle of Maduro's government. And his son is basically hinting at three courses of action here. One, they want to instate confidence in their public about the present administration that has taken over the reins from Nicolas Maduro and his wife in their absence, of course, referring to Delcy Rodriguez and her brother, who's now in charge of the assembly. So it's the family and the inner circle that is governing in absence and wants to show that their institutions are still quite secure. That was one message. The second message he's trying to send out is that they still have hope. That is very, very questionable, because unless it's US that does pardon Maduro and sends him back, it is very unlikely that they will see the return of Nicolas Maduro that promptly, as they are stating. You know, neither do they have the defense capabilities. At this point, they don't even have you know, good cards on the negotiating table. So it seems very, very unlikely. But probably it's the third aspect that's more important, which is his son, Maduro Guerra. He was trying to, you know, stimulate emotions in public, and at some point he also mentioned during the speech that you just played in Spanish, he seemed to be addressing people and telling them that you know, we would want people to mobilize and you know, protest this or show some support for Maduro, and you know, come to the streets and occupy the streets. it doesn't seem to be happening that way. There we do see protests happening, but that is largely because of US intervention and the manner of that intervention, but not so much for Maduro's administration or Maduro-led, Venezuela being the dream of any of the people. So it seems very, very unlikely, in short, that Nicolas Maduro is going to be seen back in his domestic politics unless, two of the things happen. Either these people are able to, Venezuelans are able to negotiate, and their people in power have something to give to the United States that they would need more than Nicolas Maduro at this point, which seems unlikely because he was the main person for extraction during the entire operation. And second, unless he gets pardoned in the US, which also feels very unlikely given the kind of very serious charges against him. And let's not forget that the US had declared him almost, like the head of a running narco-terrorist organization. So it's not that easy. They are probably doing that for domestic political consumption and to stir some amount of confidence in the people, but it is extremely unlikely.
Yes, thank you for highlighting that. And like you rightfully mentioned that the US has characterized him as a threat, Maduro as a threat, and also now US has characterized this latest operation of taking Maduro as law enforcement action. How do you think how will US justify their action?
I mean, see, my answer would have been slightly different had it not been the Trump administration. But under the current administration, seems like for them, the severity of narco-terrorism and the framing of the whole issue as a severe threat to American security is justified enough for them to have carried out this operation. And in their strategic thinking, they are looking at, they are re-invoking in some way a new version of Monroe Doctrine and trying to say that, America's back in its strategic backyard and it wants to secure it, and it will employ any amount of capabilities to the best of their possibilities in order to ensure that US interests are secured. Not just around the United States, but we are looking at this power projection happening beyond. Because I'm again referring to President Trump and his administration when they say that they are looking at the possibilities of complete erosion or destruction of narco-terrorism across. We're talking about Cuba, we're talking about Colombia, Mexico. They went even as far as Iran to say that unless protesters, if any more protesters get hurt, Iran might see US action. So they are clearly projecting their power beyond the usual surrounding states of United States. So given that sort of environment, it feels very, very unlikely that we are going to see a lot of stability. US is no longer shy of projecting that power. I mean, they have never been shy, but it looks like under this administration, the kind of operation that was conducted and the amount of meticulous planning that it took for 6 months, including intelligence, their armed forces, all the best of their minds coming together to make sure that this was executed with complete precision, seems to be well thought out, and doesn't look like US is going to roll it back. On the contrary, I mean, we don't know how credible this is, but the US has actually threatened Venezuela with a second strike if they do not bow down, right? That's one. Two, it is still very, very questionable as to what US has in mind when it says that it wants to run Venezuela.
Yes.
So we don't know in terms of justification, are they trying to hint at a democratic transition? Are they trying to look at maybe holding elections? Are they going to recognize this legitimate government currently in Venezuela as illegitimate? Because President Trump has clearly said they are on one hand talking to Delcy Rodriguez, and on the other hand, they don't want to recognize them as legitimate government either. So we don't know which way US is going. And number three, when US says we want to keep the oil running, we don't know what they mean. I mean, are American companies in the current environment of instability, are they willing to make the investments in Venezuela? And what is the guarantee after this administration that things are, I mean, let's say Trump administration is able to bring about some interim stability, what about after that? Because investments are not that easy to pull out once they are made. So, there is too much uncertainty. I do not think United States is looking forward to being answerable or accountable at this point to the international community. They thought something was a security threat and they addressed it. And I mean, that's all we're going to hear from the United States unless there is a second course of action that they want to take.
Yes, thank you for highlighting all of that. Dr. Chadda, please stay with us.